Toyota has sold more hybrids than any company on earth, and in 2026, it still had to recall thousands of them over a bolt that wasn't tightened right. Size Honda, the smaller hybrid player, had a problem too, but its recall was more than 10 times the size. Surprised? 720,810 vehicles over a fuel pump that could crack and leak fuel near a hot engine. A rideshare driver outside Phoenix bought a Camry Hybrid specifically because of Toyota's reputation for never breaking down. B-roll note: dash cam style shot from inside a hybrid sedan, desert highway. By the end of this video, you'll understand why reliability and recall-free are not the same promise, and why the company you think has the bigger problem might not be the one that should actually worry you. We'll come back to that inverter bolt because what Toyota did after finding it tells you more than the defect itself. Here's the scale. Toyota's 2025-2026 hybrid recall covers roughly 55,000 vehicles, the Camry Hybrid and the Corolla Cross Hybrid, for a bolt inside the power inverter that can work loose, cutting motive power or, in rare cases, sparking a fire. B-roll note: animated diagram of inverter converting battery power to motor. Toyota's own filing puts the real-world damage at 34 reported incidents and 15 warranty claims. That's a company catching a problem early, before it became a pattern. Honda's number is a different order of magnitude: 720,810 vehicles, Accord Hybrid, CR-V Hybrid, Civic Hybrid, recalled. Because machining debris left inside the fuel pump solenoid can cause cracking, which leads to a fuel leak. Add a second, separate recall, nearly 1 million vehicles, for a tire repair kit whose sealant bottle can build pressure and fire its own cap like a projectile. B-roll note: NHTSA recall document scroll, Honda logo watermark. Our anchor for this story is a rideshare driver in suburban Phoenix who bought a 2025 Camry Hybrid for one reason. He'd read that Toyota hybrids just don't fail. Then the recall notice arrived in his mailbox. He didn't lose power on the road, but he lost something else: the certainty he paid extra for. That certainty is the actual product being sold here, not the car, the promise. And the system behind that promise, decades of Toyota hybrid engineering versus Honda's faster, more aggressive hybrid rollout, is built on very different bets about how much risk a company is willing to carry into production. That gap in philosophy is forward reference number 2, and it's the real subject of this episode. But this is only the surface layer. Toyota's hybrid system, the one underneath the Camry and Corolla Cross, traces back to technology the company has been refining since the original Prius launched in Japan in 1997. Nearly 3 decades of iteration. B-roll note: archival Prius footage transitioning to modern Camry Hybrid. Honda came to mass hybrid production later, and more aggressively. Its current 2-motor hybrid system, used across the Accord, CR-V, and Civic-B, is newer architecture, built to compete on power and efficiency numbers. Toyota's older system couldn't always match. 2 philosophies. One conservative, one catching up. Faster development cycles, more new parts, more places to fail. That's not speculation, it's supply chain math. The Honda fuel pump defect didn't come from bad design. It came from a manufacturing process. Machined chips getting caught between the cutting tool and the pump housing during production, creating excess torque that cracked the solenoid core. B-roll note: manufacturing floor footage, precision machining equipment. A production line problem, not an engineering table problem. Toyota's inverter bolt was the same category of issue, a fastener that didn't get torqued to spec on the line. Both companies got hit by the same kind of failure. Not bad ideas, bad execution at scale. There's a third layer to Honda's story that rarely makes the headlines. Alongside the fuel pump recall, Honda separately recalled close to 1 million vehicles for a tire repair kit defect, a sealant bottle that can build internal pressure and launch its own cap. B-roll note: close-up of a compact tire repair kit, roadside assistance context. 2 unrelated systems, 2 unrelated failure modes, overlapping on some of the same CR-V hybrid and Accord hybrid VINs, inside the same 18-month stretch. That's not one bad part. That's two separate supplier relationships, both missing something before the vehicle left the plant. Here's the pattern most people miss. Bigger recall doesn't mean worse car. Honda's recall numbers are larger partly because Honda sells the CR-V hybrid and Accord hybrid into a market that's grown faster in the last 3 years than almost anything Toyota has scaled at the same pace. More units built means more units exposed when a single manufacturing defect surfaces. Toyota's smaller number reflects a narrower hybrid rollout on the affected models, not necessarily tighter tolerances. But here's what most people get wrong. Raw recall counts are the number people quote. They are the worst number to actually judge a car company by. Look at what's underneath Toyota's 55,000-unit recall. Only 34 confirmed incidents and 15 warranty claims actually surfaced from the defect before Toyota moved. That's a failure rate of a fraction of 1% of the affected population, caught, filed, and acted on before it became a safety statistic most owners would ever notice. B-roll note, bar chart, recall population versus confirmed incidents. Honda's fuel pump recall doesn't come with an equivalent public incident count in the same filing, but the exposure window is longer and wider. 720,810 vehicles built across multiple model years and 3 separate hybrid nameplates means the same manufacturing flaw sat undetected through a larger, more complex production run before anyone caught it. Add the separate 1 million unit tire kit recall, a completely different failure mode, on a completely different component, and you have 2 independent defects surfacing in the same recall cycle on overlapping vehicles. That's the number that matters, not units recalled. Defects per production cycle. Think of it like this. If you're a fleet manager buying 50 hybrid sedans for a delivery contract, a 0.06% incident rate, Toyota's actual reported failure count against its recall population die is a rounding error in your maintenance budget. B-roll note, fleet lot, rows of hybrid sedans. 2 unrelated recall campaigns hitting the same 3 nameplates in the same 18-month window is a different kind of risk. It's not one bad batch. It's a pattern of things getting missed before the car reaches the customer. Here's the counterintuitive turn. The company with the smaller recall, Toyota, actually generated less real-world harm per vehicle built, based on the incident data both companies were required to disclose. But Honda's larger numbers come from a company selling into segments, CR-V hybrid, Accord hybrid, that have exploded in volume over the last 3 years. B-roll note, sales chart, CR-V hybrid volume growth, 2023-2026. Honda isn't necessarily building a worse hybrid. Honda is building hybrids faster, at higher volume, with a newer platform that hasn't had 30 years to shake out its manufacturing quirks the way Toyota's has. That resolves the philosophy question from Section 2. Toyota's caution comes from an old system with old scar tissue. Honda's exposure comes from a new system still accumulating its own. And here's forward reference 3, resolved early. Remember that inverter bolt from the opening? Toyota's fix was a straightforward part swap, free of charge, dealer visit under an hour. Honda's fuel pump fix requires inspection and, in a meaningful share of cases, full replacement, a longer, more invasive repair on a part that sits closer to the fuel system than almost anything else under the hood. Here's the thing you've probably felt but never heard said out loud. Brand reputation and current model risk are 2 completely different things, and the automotive industry benefits from you never separating them. Toyota's decades of reliability data are real. They're also from older Toyotas, Corollas, and Camrys, from a hybrid platform that had 10 years to mature before your neighbor bought one. The 2025-2026 Camry Hybrid and Corolla Cross Hybrid you're cross-shopping today are newer software, newer inverter hardware, built on a foundation of trust earned by a different generation of car. This closes the loop on the human anchor. The rideshare driver in Phoenix didn't do anything wrong. He read the reputation correctly. What he didn't know What almost nobody outside the industry knows is that a recall on a brand new platform tells you less about Toyota reliability broadly and more about how well this specific generation's supply chain performed in its first 18 months on the road. That's the exclusivity signal. Most car buyers compare recall headlines. People who actually understand this industry compare recall populations against confirmed incident rates, and they check whether the defect is a first-year teething problem or a mature platform failure. One of those is expected, the other is a warning sign. Toyota's inverter bolt, on a platform with decades of proven hybrid engineering underneath it, reads as first-year teething. Honda's fuel pump defect, on a platform still scaling into its highest volume years, reads the same way, but with a longer runway of exposure ahead of it if Honda doesn't tighten its own supply chain oversight before the next model year locks in. There's a second piece of hidden knowledge worth carrying out of this video. Both automakers responded the way a company with something to protect responds. Fast, transparent filings, free repairs, direct customer contact lines. Neither buried the problem. That's worth separating from the defect itself. A recall isn't proof a company is careless. A recall that gets quietly extended, delayed, or downplayed months later, that's the actual red flag. Watch what happens to a defect 18 months after the headline, not the headline itself. Which brings us to what happens next. Neither company is going to slow down. Toyota is pushing its hybrid architecture into more nameplates in 2027. Honda is doing the same, at an even faster pace, chasing the volume Toyota built over 30 years in a fraction of the time. Toyota and Honda assembly lines running in parallel. The next recall, and there will be one, won't be decided by which badge is on the hood. It will be decided by which company caught its next manufacturing flaw at 34 incidents, and which one let it run to 720,000.